Welcome back to the End of the Internet podcast. I am your host, Gonzalo, and if you've reached us, congratulations, you found your way to the end of the internet. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing our top 5 favorite comic book stories. This is going to be encompassing one-shots, Elseworlds, miniseries, story arcs, kind of the works. We cover a wide range of comic stories, and these are just our personal favorites. We had some back and forth of whether or not to include certain titles, just because some of them have been done to death, but ultimately we decided to just do our absolute favorites. So if we're treading old ground, please bear with us. Also, I would like to provide a small trigger warning for some of the content in this conversation. We'll be covering a few comics that deal with sexual assault, and I just didn't want that to be a surprise to anyone. It's always best to look out for anyone who could be listening to this. In that regard, to give away my number 5, I talk about The Killing Joke, and then shortly thereafter we talk about another comic series. And I don't know why, but I didn't even mention the sexual assault that Barbara Gordon endures at the hands of the Joker and his henchmen in this book, and it is very unsettling. The way some people interpret it, they believe that the Joker rapes her, and I've never subscribed to that idea. I always kind of had it in my head that the Joker took pictures and just showed them to Gordon and let Gordon's imagination ruin his mind. But even if that's exactly how it happened, which, talking about Alan Moore, he is prone to writing violence towards women in this regard. In a fair number of his stories, it features prominently. And to completely ignore that, I think, was a bit irresponsible for me. So I apologize. But I did want to kind of touch on that and wanted to make sure that anyone who was listening to this had a fair heads up. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to the show, for liking, subscribing, for giving us feedback. Sorry, it's been a while since we posted a new episode, and that's a large part my doing, adjusting to new life circumstances, new jobs, stuff like that. But we should be getting back on track. I feel like I say this every episode, but thank you guys so much for hanging in there and listening, and any feedback and comments would be so wonderful to see and hear, and we'd love to engage with you guys. But without further delay, here is our discussion on our top 5 favorite comic story arcs. We hope you guys enjoy the show. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, so today we are recording the 15th episode of the End of the Internet podcast. It's a little weird. I can't believe that we made it to 15 episodes. It's pretty amazing, pretty exciting. I don't know, I never kind of thought that we would ever get around to making a podcast, let alone lasting 15 episodes. I really wanted to do one every week, but that's just not how life is working for us right now. But I am pretty excited and happy that we made it to 15.
Yeah, for not having a set recording schedule, and for life getting in the way, and for us not,
You having a newborn kid. I mean, Mason has grown up, of course, this podcast.
New jobs, things changing, yes. All this cool stuff. Like, the fact that we have 15 episodes of a podcast is actually kind of cool, Yeah. So, I mean, if it's going to slow down a little bit, but we're still going, that's still pretty badass.
Shout-outs to my co-host, Markus. Thank you for letting us record here at your place. Having a base of operation and coming through 10 times out of 10.
Shout out to Gonzalo for putting these things together. Like, they're not easy, and they take work and effort, and he has gotten better with each episode, so that's freaking awesome too. So, stroke each other for a little bit.
Right, just a little bit. A little bit.
And I was just gonna add on to the whole the effort that you put into it. As you've gotten increasingly better at editing, I feel like I've gotten just a little better at creating the thumbnail.
Oh, no. I've been, for the past 4 episodes, I've meant to put in a shout out in the intro, like, hey, shout out to Markus. He creates the thumbnails that you see on YouTube, and he does them, like, I'll send him a text like, hey, we need a thumbnail that has, like, I don't know, this and that. Can you do that? And I never, account for the difficulty. I just kind of tell him what I want, and he goes, I want it. And then maybe 20 minutes later, I get 5 different variations of what they could be, and 2 of them are standout. And then there are 2 that are kind of like, well, maybe. But there's always like 2 that are fucking great. And everyone that you've seen has been the pillar of like at least 4 choices.
Yeah, well, the reason I even bring that up wasn't to toot my horn, is because I wanted to actually
you fucking lie.
I actually was thinking about maybe sometime in the future, or maybe even for this episode, putting on the Twitter to get more, fan reaction, subscriber reaction, of putting, like, if I do 3 or 4 of them, Gonzalo pick out like the 3 that he likes the most, and then put them on Twitter as a poll, like, which 3 of these titles would you like? So just something I've been thinking about, but maybe keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
But we'll see, because sometimes I only make 2.
Yeah,
and it's like, these are the 2 best ones.
They'll knock one out
in the first shot,
in one go. Yeah, it's like, oh, I know exactly what this thumbnail is going to look like, and you'll have it.
But yeah, I like when a lot of like different podcasts and people do stuff like that. So it was just something I was thinking about. So keep an eye out for that, Twitter.
Yeah, 15 episodes in, it's just been Marcus and myself. Like, I edit the thing, he makes the thumbnails, re-record it. It's just us.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, keeping with the 5 in the title.
Yeah.
We are going to do a top 5 list. So this is episode 15. We decided on a top 5 list. And we wanted to do something that was comics oriented.
Yeah, originally it was going to be, the idea was to do a love-hate of Endgame, but we've kind of burnt out on Endgame. Maybe we'll do that later. But
yeah, or maybe if you guys want, if you hit us up on Twitter or the comments or something, if you really want to know our thoughts on fucking Endgame, let us know. But I don't know. I fell into like Avengers Endgame overload. There's just too much. I watched too much content, and I was like, I don't even want to fucking talk about this movie.
Yeah,
having only seen it once, I want to see it again. But
yeah, I guess we both saw it once. We do have some pretty interesting opinions on it, but I do want to actually watch it one more time to solidify my opinions, and then shit all over this movie.
Right? Yeah, it's funny because like, as I was getting ready today, I just had one of the podcasts on, and it's like at the very end of the MCU review one, or the pre-MCU review, it's like, what if this movie sucks? Or like, what if we hate it? And you're like, oh, I'm calling it now, it's gonna be trash. It's so funny.
Yep.
Anyway, so we wanted to move into something like more comics related, and we're talking at work about X-Men and all sorts of stuff, and we decided to do a top 5 list of our favorite comic stories.
Yeah.
So without further delay, we're gonna start with Marcus, as we did last time. He'll do 5, I'll do my 5, he'll do 4, I'll do my 4, and on down the road. So, Marcus, what is your number 5 all-time favorite comics story?
So when I was thinking of this list, I really had to dig deep into my fucking memory banks, because I couldn't remember. It's been a while since I picked up a lot of comics. Back in the day, years ago, I was, a decent comic sweaty. I wouldn't say hardcore, but hardcore enough to where I could hold my own in a conversation.
And you'd regularly buy trades and stuff.
Yeah, like at least every 2 weeks, go to the comic shop, pick up a couple of comics, read some stuff, try to keep current with things that were going on. But I think I got event fatigue, and event fatigue then turned into like, this is getting a little too ridiculous, and so many characters would die and then just come back like a month later, and it started to really wear on me, as in nothing meant anything anymore. So I kind of got out of it. Gonzalo and our buddy Eli was my pulse of keeping up to date, and then after a while that wasn't even a thing anymore, because I kind of just didn't care.
Yeah,
I would read things or look them up, see what was going on. But with that being said, I really had to dig into my memory banks, and at number 5 of my top 5 greatest favorite story arc series, whatever you want to call it, it was originally going to be DC's Heaven's Ladder by Mark Waid and art by Brian Hitch, but at a last second effort I changed it. So my number 5 would have to be Transformers G.I. Joe, set in World War II, by and I'm going to screw his name up, so I apologize, John A. Reber, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's John A. Reber.
And art by Jay Lee. And that, if I had to take that with me to an island, that was the only thing, my only 5 comics I could bring with me, I think that actually beats out Heaven's Ladder by literally a point. Just because the artwork, I know I've revisited that comic so much. And the only reason it wasn't on my original top 5 list, because I didn't finish it. I can't find the last 2 arcs, the last 2 issues in that arc to finish it. So I haven't finished it. I won't even look up to see if someone put it up there. Like, I want to own it. I want to read it. I want to finish what I started. But the artwork alone, I've spent hours studying it. their story is just really unique. Like, I would have never thought to do a Transformer G.I. Joe story set in World War II.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's so interesting because the Transformers, they turn into like World War II era vehicles.
Yes, it's so awesome.
Like the G.I. Joe operatives work in a capacity to fight Cobra, which is like an offshoot of
like a Nazi offshoot. Yeah, definitely.
And Jay Lee's art is so moody and dark and just bathed in shadows, and like it's like you could feel the rust.
Yeah.
It's so good.
There's certain scenes, and even on the covers especially, but there's certain scenes where you see like, and it's patented Jay Lee, you see like the wires hanging off of them.
Yeah.
Like, you'll see like a silhouette of an arm, and from the elbow joint looks like wires are like,
it's like a mess of tangled wires.
Yeah, it's like falling apart and rusty, and it's just so awesome. And the fact that Cobra Commander and Destro would have any kind of fucking hold on Megatron is fucking so sick.
So
like
cool. And they even weave in the like Storm Shadow Snake Eyes kind of rivalry.
Do.
Like,
they weave that in so well. And I mean, I don't know if we're doing spoilers or whatever. I mean,
it's spoilers for all of this. I mean, but a lot of
right.
these things people have read. I believe.
Watching, I think it was Grimlock. Watching Grimlock die and with the mountainside, the cliffside breaking. Broke my fucking heart. It was so good. So I mean that, but I never got to finish it. One day I would like to finish it. Like I said, I'm just missing the last two.
And I don't know if this is true, and I'm not making excuses for you, but I feel like the last couple of issues, like there was a delay or they didn't come out like
I
on
wouldn't
time.
know.
I cannot remember, but I feel like I don't remember because that was coming out of a real regular schedule, and then it just kind of stopped.
Maybe.
And I don't know if it ever... It had to have concluded, but I just don't remember why there was that space. But I remember there being a difference between, like, the book was coming out steadily, and then it just stopped coming out.
Yeah, because I still have the original...
Because I think we talked about it. I was like, oh, they finished that book. I didn't know that it ever ended.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I have the original pressings. I have the original first
issues.
And this the last two I don't have.
6 issues or something like that.
Yeah,
it was just a little
mini-series.
Yeah.
It was either 6 or 8.
I think it was 8.
Yeah, it was 8 because I have 6.
Okay.
But yeah, that was my number 5. Like I said, as much as I love Heaven's Ladder,
G.I. Joe, Transformers,
it's my childhood. Like, so again, I think the thing that completely takes me back is just the idea of setting it in World War II. I would have never guessed. I would have never done that as someone who thinks that they're creative.
Fucking hero that like was like, oh, what if they're in World War II?
Yeah, it was like, what?
It's like, okay.
It's like, okay, so how do we do that? It was Starscream's a fucking biplane, or those like planes, and Megatron's a fucking tank. Yeah. Oh my god, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's too good. But yeah, that would be starting off my list, number 5. Nice. All right. You try.
Okay, so I was sitting here for the past like hour trying to figure out what my list was going to be because I didn't do any homework.
He was picking children.
I was picking children.
He was picking children, and it was rough to watch him have to pick.
And Marcus was constantly telling me, like, you gotta be true to yourself. You gotta be true to yourself. Don't put stuff like, because there are things that I didn't want on here just because everybody's talks about them, which is gonna lead me to
I totally understand that.
Yeah. But leading to my number 5 is Batman: The Killing Joke by Alan Moore and Brian Boland. And I'm talking, honestly, when you get like super nitpicky and sweaty, the original printing, like the first printing, with colors by John Higgins.
Yes.
So John Higgins had
darker,
colored Watchmen. And shortly after that, DC kind of like threw him onto the next Alan Moore project. And he did The Killing Joke. And that was the first time I read that. I was a little kid living in California. And the thing just fucking blew my mind. I've never seen a prettier version of the Joker. I've never seen such beautiful art. And later on, Brian Boland, they re-released like a 25th anniversary hardcover collection of The Killing Joke. And Boland went and recolored everything. And everything looks super gray and muted. And I don't like it. I mean,
bland.
It's really bland.
One was crisp and dark, like kind of not moody, but like clean, and one was bland, like a filter was over it. And
It feels like a lot of like action movies you see now. They have that kind of like gray, bluish wash over everything. But
the
John Higgins colors,
shooters, everything was just in that fucking weird green gray tint.
Yeah, everything after the Matrix looked like the Matrix. But John Higgins colors on that book, it was so warm and rich and.
The purple,
so melodic. The reds and the oranges.
The orange. The scene.
They're so fucking good. So I I like seeing an artist's complete vision of their work. So I appreciate that Bullen got the chance to color how he wanted to, but I don't care for it.
It's the first thing you saw.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Even that would be. I guess you can never like separate the nostalgia from the critique, but I think it's argue really hard. That even now I would still prefer the Higgins colors to Bullen's. But Killing Joke, I've read. Every time I pick up the Killing Joke, I've read it.
Yeah.
Like, every single time I put it in my hand, I open it and I read it from start to finish.
There are times that I purposely do not touch that book because I know I'm going to read it. I'm going to open it and flip through it and then read it. So
it's such a good story. This story's been talked to death. There's been the whole, Grant Morrison theory that Batman kills him at the end, and there's just tons of stuff. It's terrible animated movie that was adapted by Mazzarello.
We went to go watch that.
We saw it at the theater and it was fucking terrible. The actual book itself I think is so good. The story that I've heard is that Bullen had asked Alan Moore to write a Joker story. He's like, I really want to draw the Joker, can you do a Joker story for me?
And isn't like Alan Moore's like it's like the worst thing he's ever done?
Yeah, he doesn't like it.
He doesn't like
it. It doesn't say anything. It's just about these two guys that don't like each other, don't get along. It doesn't say anything.
It says a lot, Alan.
It's funny that like one of Alan Moore's throwaway stories is the greatest Joker story ever told, in my estimation. And a lot of people believe that.
I think so.
And I mean, even you look at Todd Phillips' new Joker movie is kind of springboarding off of him being like a comedian or whatever, and that stuff kind of comes from The Killing Joke. It's written within this framework of the story that it's a possible history of the Joker. It's ambiguous, but it's still so fucking brilliantly done. And for Alan Moore to sit down and go, okay, I'm going to think about these idiots for a night. I don't know how long it took him to come up with the story, but
he did it in
he was like 3 hours.
He just dusted off a story that he was working on when he was 10.
Yeah, he just like replaced, but
fuck up my Twilight to the superhero.
So the gist is that the Joker had one bad day, and it's kind of a pseudo origin of the Joker as a character. And the Joker is one of my all-time favorite fictional characters. I think it's the best Joker story ever told. And it actually highlights Batman's humanity. And I think that gets missed a lot. I don't like Psycho Batman. I don't like Batman who is so into vengeance and beating people to a pulp that he loses sight of what he's doing.
Yeah.
And this version of like, at the end of the book, Batman offers to help the Joker reform. He tells him like he doesn't have to be out on the edge alone anymore, that he would help him. He will help rehabilitate him. He will stand at his side. And the way he says it, it seems like he's in for a journey. It's like, I will do this with you. We will help you.
I don't know.
I will help you.
I don't know if you got this, but did you ever feel like, even for that specific story, like the Joker might have, for like a second, really thought about it?
There's a beautiful panel where it's the Joker's like looking at him, and he's kind of looking at him in disbelief and sincerity, and he knows at that moment that Batman's telling him the truth.
Yeah,
that he would help him, but he can't. And he honestly, like, one of the most honest moments of the Joker's life is when he turns to him and says, "No, it's too late for me," because he knows he's not going to stop being the Joker.
Yeah,
and he's already done so much bad that even if he were to reform, what would that person be? You know?
And then what would he have to live with all the shit he's done?
Yeah. So I think it's beautifully drawn. I think Brian Bullen is one of the greatest comics artists in the history of comics. And Alan Moore, to me, is the single greatest writer of all time as far as comics are concerned. I think he's somebody who solved the comics art form.
Yeah, for sure.
But, Killing Joke, number 5.
God, yep. That's good. Good stuff. We're done. All right, everybody. That's the end of the... okay. So number 4 has to go to a story that I think I've had a lot of emotional reactions to stories, but this story was, I think, the first one that actually made me tear up, like made me actually cry. So at my number 4, JLA's Identity Crisis by Brad Meltzer and the art by Rags Morales. And it's so funny, like, I guess with the internet being the way it is now, I come across a lot of, like, I guess there's a lot of hate toward this series because of the
rape stuff.
Yeah, the rape stuff. And I'm like, but a lot of people, I guess there's like, oh, they just use this thing to do this thing. I never took it that way. It was a story, and this fucking horrible thing happened. And I guess maybe because I don't know shit about Dr. Light, you know, maybe that's probably why.
I think the argument is that they soiled a character unnecessarily. What did Sue Dibney ever do to deserve this? Because you can tell that story without the rape, and it still works. You just take the rape out of it, and that story is almost basically the same, you know?
I guess so. I could never, like, I mean, and I get that. I just, the rape thing, I guess to me, maybe it was a young thing, or even now, the rape thing made me go, oh shit, this is not a kid's story. This is, it's like, when you start talking about the idea of like superheroes and spandex, you know, and like supernatural and magic rings and batarangs, it's like, oh, that's always just cool. And then when you bring it to a point where like this woman was raped by a villain, like you think about all the horrible things they've done, you know, robbing banks and blowing up buildings and killing people, but he raped this woman in JLA's fucking,
in the Watchtower.
Yeah, in the Watchtower. Like, I guess to me, it was one of those moments where it kind of like slapped you in the face as like, this isn't just he didn't just beat her up, or he didn't kidnap her. Like, he saw an opportunity, and this dude, like, we want to also change Dr. Light too. It's like, because I thought it was really interesting when fucking Zatanna and all them kind of do what they do to Dr. Light.
Yeah, they altered his
neutered him almost. It explained why he was kind of like a second tier.
Yeah, it was like a Teen Titan villain.
Yeah, it's like the second tier Teen Titan villain for so long. Is it was like, no, because the real Dr. Light's a fucking monster.
Yeah. And
he did this monster's thing. So, I mean, I get the idea, I guess, why people disliked it, but I guess I never saw it that way, if that makes any sense.
I feel like with that, in particular, like it almost seems, and I think Brad Meltzer is a great writer. He's really, really solid. I don't know if I'd say he's great, but he's really solid.
I think he's really solid.
Like, took an opportunity for almost shock value to,
and that's what people say,
like, dirty up the Silver Age, and the Silver Age is the kind of shucks kind of, you know, let's go get him era for comic books, and to do that, like, I do appreciate a lot of realism in my comics, you know, but there's a line where maybe that particular subject matter doesn't belong in the Justice League. You know, like Dr. Light, if we were to, you know, when you start putting too sharp a lens on over something like this, then it all falls apart. You know, it's like, well, it makes sense, he's a bad guy, maybe he would do bad guy things, right? Like in the real world, someone shitty would do that to someone else, right? It's like, well, if we're going to keep putting real world ideologies onto these superheroic characters, all of this starts to fall apart, you know, and it's...
Well, I think that's what I kind of dug about it, because maybe this is where I differ from people who are fond of that Silver Age. It's the idea that we've heard all these amazing, like, all Chucks and, you know, golly gee stories in the Silver Age, and it was like, no, it wasn't all that. We hid all that from you. Like, there was darker shit, but why would we talk about that?
Which is probably the same of, like, that era, you know, like the 50s and the 60s and stuff like that, where everyone's like, oh, this weird, I guess, what's the right word, like, sanitized version of America, but that's not America. You know, like, people were still having problems, there was still domestic abuse, there was still, you know, there's rampant racism and sexism and all this shit, and maybe too in the superhero community, you know.
Then that's kind of how I took it, you know. It was like, and again, I totally see why, I guess, some people, but from some of the stuff I've read, I was like, wow, you people really fucking hate this story. It's like, it's one of my favorite stories, but I get it, but I guess I took it differently. I didn't think of it as this, like, oh, low-lying fruit, how do we make this? Because to me, and maybe it's a fault of a lesser writer or a lesser creative person, how do you justify mind-wiping Batman? And, like, the panic of, like, almost like the JLA were, like, kids in a second because it's fucking Batman, you know what I mean? Like, how do you justify mind-wiping him and trying to clean up this horrible mess if it wasn't something that epically horrible?
It plays out, like, I feel that if something all this kind of, like, came together would kind of play out, you know? Like, they would, in a panic, think to mind-wipe Dr. Light, and then Batman shows up, and sees what they're doing, and he freaks the fuck out.
Because you know you're not getting away with it.
Yeah, when Oliver Queen, when he goes, like, you think you've seen him mad? You've never seen him mad, when he sees what they're doing to him. But the idea of, like, they call it, like fridging someone, you know, like how Gail Simone, women in refrigerators. So Sue gets raped by Dr. Light, and then she's murdered and set on fire by the Adams wife. Like that's so much to do to this one woman, you know, like, why all of this? Why does it have to be that? Like, and you're making a murder mystery, and if you read, like, I've read Meltzer's book The Millionaires, but he's written tons of fucking books. He has a TV show. Like, I feel like he's smarter than that. And his Green Arrow run was real touching, but this was something else. You know, I think that's the problem that people have. And one of the problems I have with that story is that, like, I think it's unnecessarily cruel to a woman for shock value. You know,
but
like
I guess that's the reason why I guess I never saw it that way, because that's life. You know, it's like I was reading a story about this 15-year-old girl who was fucking murdered, and I mean, she did all this, like, she had overcome cancer, and she did all this awesome, like, she fucking was, you know, this fucking new, like, super fucking young lady, and then she gets murdered by her mom's boyfriend, and he, like, throws her on the side of a fucking mountain or some shit. And it was just one of those things where it's like, what did she do to deserve that? Like, this horrible fucking, all these horrible things happen to this person.
The argument is that is life,
yeah,
right? But this is fiction for entertainment, and we have control of the rules in this arena. So why would you come here? Let's say you come here for escapism and you find that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, in the world of DC Comics, we don't have to constantly do that. You know, like, do you see what I'm saying? You know,
no,
I
do actually.
We get the horrors of the world, and in fiction, you know, it's like, well, you know, when people accuse, like, I can't remember what I was listening to, but somebody was talking about how, you know, like, certain Japanese heroines in anime will, like, strip naked, and then, you know, like, that's how she gets her powers, you dummy. Like, that's why she has to get naked. It's like, yeah, but the whole world is fiction.
Yeah.
So the writers didn't have to make her get naked to have superpowers.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
I got you.
Kind of thing.
I don't know. It's just interesting. I guess because sometimes maybe I'm that portion of the community that I don't. Well, I mean, yeah, obviously I read comics for escapism, but I also play video games for escapism, and, you know, I guess for every time I want to play something like Mario fucking Odyssey or, you know, Breath of the Wild, then I want to play something like Silent Hill. You know what I mean? Like something so it's an interesting. I think it's an interesting mix of looking at these spandex, colorful characters deal with something so fucking dark. It was just maybe I didn't experience it so much, because I never actually read the comic book with Green Lantern finding his girlfriend in the fridge. I actually never read that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I know of it. I've heard it, you know, a million times, and the controversies with it. But when it came to that specific story, I guess because I wasn't ready for it, that's why it punched me in the face so hard. But I didn't have a problem with it punching me in the face. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It was one of those things where I never saw it coming. It really sucked for Sue, you know, like a fucking horrible thing. But in the end, you know, maybe that low-lying fruit did get its job across, or its job done with me, because it hit me in the face. It made me tear up. Watching fucking, you know, what's
Ralph.
his name?
Ralph.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of his first name. I didn't want to call him. I was like, no, Ralph. Watching Ralph completely melt down, you know, and break down from the loss of his wife, and how the other heroes were, you know, torn by it too. Like Wonder Woman fucking giving her eulogy, and all these little things is just so powerful. Yeah, and when it was nice to see that. It's like, oh, Wonder Woman's in this red fucking suit with gold bustier thing, and she's giving this amazing eulogy. It's like they all felt more real than ever, still looking like these adventure comic guys, you know what I mean? So I think that's why.
I do like an amount of realism and seriousness when it comes to comics, especially with superheroes. I do really enjoy that. It's just I do have a few problems with that book, and I understand why people are outraged about it. But that the panels where Ralph is gonna talk at Sue's
and like
wake, and he like starts falling apart in his own hands. It's like, oh my god, this shit's so rough.
It's so good. It's so sad.
And there's some bright moments in that book, I think, that I will always remember. Like, you know, they killed Tim Drake's father, and
yes, they do. They fucking went.
Yeah, so like when Tim gets there, he gets there too.
Oh my god, they do! I cried for that too.
That was so sad. And
when
then
fucking Batman holds him, and it's, what does it say? Like the last line of that panel is like orphans or whatever. Orphans. Like, oh my god!
But that panel is so rough, like, because it's like Tim is bathed in the like shadow cast by Bruce's chest, but you can see his eye, like he's like staring at the reader. It's so intense.
It's so. And that whole build-up, of him racing over there, and
they're in like the Batmobile.
Yeah, they're in the Batmobile, and like the call comes in, and oh, it's so good. It's really good. I mean, again, I know there's a ton of people from what I've read that do not like it because of the things we discussed, but I still feel it's a fucking damn good read. And I mean, if you can get past those controversial moments, then it's still a goddamn good read, and it'll hit you in the gut. So, but that's definitely my number 4.
I really like the
Deathstroke whoops the shit out of fucking the JLA. I mean, not
it's kind of like a B
proper,
team,
but that B team's still the shit, though. I mean, the fact that okay, B team wise, Zatanna. I mean, wait, Zatanna was there, right? Yeah, Zatanna, fucking Black Canary, Flash, Green Arrow, and Green Lantern. That's still a pretty goddamn good squad, and Deathstroke takes them all the fuck out. And it was perfect. And the only reason he loses his shit is because they stab him in the fucking wrong eye.
Which was deliberate.
Yeah, of course.
I love
lose
that.
His shit, yes.
And I remember, I liked that, who sees them fighting Deathstroke? It's Dr. Light, right? And that's what he starts to remember?
Yeah.
He sees them fighting, and it's like, oh, shit.
I think he, captures a glimpse of one thing, and it, makes him,
He's like, I remember seeing something like that.
Yeah.
And I like that there was the thread that they had fucked with Bruce's brain, and he knew it, and they had even mentioned it's like the world's greatest detective isn't going to not know that for long. He will eventually figure it out, which he does.
Of course.
I thought that was cool. Rags, I think, kills it on the art.
Yeah,
he's
he
so
does.
fucking good.
He does. There's a lot of moments in that book where I feel I can see the movement. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's the moment where Deathstroke does this fucking roll and jabs Black Canary in the fucking he breaks her jaw or some shit.
Oh yeah, so she can't scream.
Yeah, so she can't scream, and then he jabs Zatanna in the fucking throat so she can't talk. I can see the barrel roll movement is so awesome. But the one scene that I can see the most is Ralph falling apart. You can see the movement in his art of him falling apart. But the other
it looks
one,
his skin is putty.
It's very putty.
He can't keep himself together.
But the one that I always get is the end where the twist is coming, where I think it's the second to the last issue ends, and Adam's wife, which I can't remember her name, she says something, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it makes you feel like the Atom had something to do with it.
He makes that face he said good night, honey, or something, and he has that real sinister.
Yeah, he has a sinister face, and you can hear the light click off.
Yeah.
So when you're like, what the fuck? And you read the next issue,
and he goes,
the light clicked back on, and it wasn't a sinister face. It was him going, wait a minute. And he was putting it together.
Yeah.
And you find out that his fucking crazy ass wife.
I just thought about that before you said it. When he's
he
clicks it back on, and he's like, what? He knows what happened.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, are they gonna make the fucking Atom a monster?
I know. I was like, what's gonna happen?
But then when you read that, and it starts immediately. When you flip to that next issue, he's clicking the light back on. And he's like, what the fuck? And all hell breaks loose. It's so good. But that's my absolute number 4, JLA Identity Crisis. Great read.
It's a good read. Okay, so my number 4 is a comic book run by Steve Orlando and the artist known as ACO, and I think there was maybe one fill-in artist, I can't remember, but their phenomenal run on Midnighter. DC had done a little initiative called DCU, YOU, and it was all these different kind of
which sounds so douchey in a way. DCU?
Yeah. It's kind of I don't know, high-spirited adventure books. Dick Grayson was a spy for Spiral, which I thought was real interesting. Because there was a period where they thought that he had died in Forever Evil, I think, and so he went undercover as an operative. But spilling out of that book, what Tom King and I can't remember who else was writing Grayson. I think it was Tim Seeley. Steve Orlando came on and he did a comic based on Midnighter, and we hadn't seen Midnighter for a while, and DC had bought up Wildstorm, and then after I don't remember what it was, Worldstorm, they basically ended Flashpoint. They basically ended the Wildstorm universe.
Yeah, they ended the Wildstorm universe,
and New 52 had a couple of
brought them into the fold, which
and
when
Midnighter
I first
had
heard, I thought was kind of cool, but then I was like,
I don't think they gave them the backing that they needed, because there's a couple of Wildstorm titles for the New 52, like Voodoo and Grifter.
Yeah. Which I think I bought that first one. I just wasn't. I didn't.
Yeah, it wasn't very good. But so this Midnighter series came out, and it was right up my alley. I'm a huge Authority fan.
Yes, he is.
One of the children that was left at the platform was the Authority. But God, I love the fucking Authority. So Midnighter is one of, if not my favorite character from the Authority.
But it's okay.
Yeah, so Steve Orlando is an openly bisexual or pansexual comics writer, and I thought it was really great to have someone who is part of the LGBT community write an LGBTQ positive character and didn't water him down.
Any fucking better with Apollo and Midnighter, like
yeah,
at all.
Yeah.
You don't get
and
any
Midnighter
better.
is not someone that like lisps. He doesn't wear a rainbow on his chest. You know, he's not like what straight white dudes think that the gay community want to see in a gay character.
Yeah,
he
he's a
is
dude
just
who just likes
yeah,
dudes.
he is a gay man. You know, which has a whole history behind it, which is really great. And to kind of like the name of the first trade is called Out. You know, it's like unapologetically at front and center, which I love. But also the story is really damn good. The story is about, so Apollo and Midnighter have just recently split, and Midnighter for the first time sees himself single, and he's kind of like a bachelor, so he's kind of like on a dating website, and you know, he's like meeting people and stuff.
Yeah.
But he never hides the fact that he's Midnighter.
Yeah.
He's not like, you know, I can't remember the fucking name of like Trent something, the alias he used to go by or whatever, but like no, he's just Midnighter. He's Midnighter morning, noon, and night. And he goes on a couple of random dates, and it's just fun. He has like this bar he hangs out with, and everybody knows who he is, you know. And he's also stopping like super metahuman crime.
Yeah.
And Aiko, I'm just gonna say Aiko, is this artist that he worked on this book. He worked on a small handful of other things. He worked on the Nick Fury, James Robinson series not too long ago. I don't know what he's doing now, but David Aja is an artist that worked on Iron Fist. He worked on Hawkeye. He's worked on a ton of things. And I always felt like his artwork was artistic equation that he was trying to figure out, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that Aiko solved it. Like,
nice.
That's how I always pictured it in my head. Because he does a lot of the same stuff, but he does it almost better.
Yeah.
So the art is fantastic. The action is super riveting, and the story is really touching. Like, you get this sense of who Midnighter is as a human being, and you like root for him. You know, he's like sinister, and he's funny. He has a black sense of humor, and you know, he's very secure in who he is and what he does, and he never has the angst or the like weight of, you know, like, what is justice? Am I am I a bad guy or am I a good guy?
No,
it's like,
no,
I am like, I am a tool for justice. It's just I am a blunt tool for justice. You know, like, he knows exactly what he is.
I'm a fucking hammer.
Yes. And that book is collected in 2 trades, so I highly recommend it if anybody's into Midnighter, if anybody thinks like, oh, Midnighter's just gay evil Batman, you know.
No,
he's not. He's very
so much
more. He's so much more than that.
He's like Batman, Wolverine, fucking Punisher, rolled into one in a trench coat,
but with a personality.
But with a
you
personality,
know, like,
and not always doom and gloom, and not like always sad. He's like, no, he likes what he does.
Yeah, his trademark to me is his smile.
Yes,
like,
yes.
Whenever he has his cloak on or his mask, and he's like in the thick of shit.
There's that one cover where he's like jumping down from like the cityscape, and he has like a big old smile
he's just
on his
fucking
face.
grinning.
Like,
and that goes all the way back to when Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch created the character. Like, almost the first image of Midnighter in costume, he's smiling. You know, like, because he likes what he fucking does, and he's really good at it. And he knows that he's doing the most good with what he has. You know, he's not like, I don't know. I don't mind that he's not necessarily plagued, you know. And
we have enough plagued characters.
Yeah. There's enough people to like worry about, you know, like philosophy. He doesn't really have a philosophy, which I think is cool. But he's such a joy to read, and when done right, I've never seen him better than in this series. Even better than when Warren Ellis wrote him. But when he's done wrong, he's almost really disgusting, wrong, you know. And like Mark Miller is someone I don't think really figured it out. I can't remember the name of the writer that was writing the end of the Midnighter series for Wildstorm, the first one that Garth Ennis had started. But those books are bad.
Yeah,
I mean, they're really, really terrible. And there's not a whole lot of the whole like, you know, you cocksucker, you buttfucker, things like that. Yeah. You know, in this book. It's not really like the immediate insults that they go to, and I really appreciate that, you know.
Yeah.
And also, it's a fucking beautiful book. Like, it's so well drawn, and like the panels and the flow of the story is fun. Suicide Squad's in it for a hot second. You know, there's a bunch of like DC properties. Prometheus is in it, and then towards the end, like, it's also about him kind of reconnecting with Apollo, and like, where is that going to go? And they're kind of like the great lovers of the DC universe now, you know. It's just like, I don't know that I could say that any of the main heroes have a great love, you know. I guess Lois Lane and Superman, you know, but right after Lois Lane and Superman is no. No.
It's a great love.
It should be. It's not though. See, that's the thing. Like Batman
I see
and
what you're saying.
Catwoman
Okay.
should be a great love, but it's not.
Oh yeah, no, okay, I get what you're saying.
But-
Then I agree.
But yeah, then it's Midnight and Apollo, in my estimation. But,
yeah, the one that actually will have an end.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah, no, okay, I get you.
And
There's Batman and Catwoman is the great love that will never be.
Yeah. The thing. Okay, so what's wrong with Batman and Catwoman is that they need to get over themselves for each other, and they can't.
And they will never.
They'll never get over themselves.
She loves being Catwoman. He loves being Batman. That's just, we're done.
Yeah,
We're done. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Like they compromise as much as possible, but there's a level of compromise in a relationship that neither one is capable of, especially for the other. So that's why my headcanon, Wonder Woman and Batman are the best. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But
it's good. It's good.
Yeah, Midnighter by Steve Orlando and Aiko was fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. That is my number 4. So number 3.
Number 3. All right. So number 3, another story that punched me in the fucking gut when I read it. I think, and you have to understand, when I read a comic, I don't necessarily pick it up right away and read it again. I read it, picked it up again, read it again, and then picked it up again and read it a third time. Batman, Death of the Family, Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. Goddamn, that they took Joker. And I'll never forget, I remember telling myself, and I don't ever think I got to tell Gonzalo this, but I remember telling myself that Scott Snyder's fucked up. Like, I was...
Dude, my man is dark.
Yeah, my dude is so dark. I remember the ideas of what he was doing in Death of the Family, and I remember listening to, like, an interview with him, and I was like... Because he was talking about, like, he was starting a family and, like, all this stuff. And then you read that, and you're kind of like, hey, man, what were you thinking about? What?
Nothing.
Gonzalo had an epiphany of something.
Okay, sorry, just really fast.
Breaking news.
Mr. Miracle by Tom King and Mitch Gerads should have been on my fucking list. I knew I was going to miss something.
It's too late.
It's too late.
Honorable mention. Batman.
I might just edit that out.
Don't edit it out. It's too good. In Death of the Family, they take Joker to a whole nother fucking level of crazy that I've always felt the Joker was capable of, and I've always been ready to see. And then you see it, and you're almost not ready for it. Like,
because this was after New 52 when he had peeled off his face, right?
Because so that whole first part is him getting his face back, and I mean, you talk about getting something iconic back from, you know, like, if it was a Marvel movie, it'd be Thanos getting his gauntlet or something. You know, I have to go get the gauntlet or the stones or whatever. If it was fucking...
Or my hammer.
If it was Thor, he has to go get the
shield.
hammer. If it was Cabin... This dude is going into Gotham fucking PD to go get his face back. The fact that he pushes Harley to a whole nother level of horror to where she is truly afraid of him, like on another level, was so fucking cool. It's so funny to me when a lot of people are like, Joker and Harley, the best relationship ever. It's like, I can't fucking stand that. Because, look, I love you, Internet, but if you think Joker and Harley are one of the best relationships ever, you're a fucking moron. I'm sorry.
You need to reevaluate your self-worth.
Yeah, like, seriously. If you think of you as the Joker and your girl is Harley, you're a fucking asshole.
Yeah. And if you think of yourself as Harley and your guy is the Joker,
you need to leave.
Yeah,
that is not. It's not a good relationship. No. I don't give a fuck what anyone said. No one has ever portrayed that relationship other than abusive, like on a fucking level of mental and physical. Ugh. Anyways,
I would say the only time that the Joker Harley relationship has ever been portrayed as tender is, weirdly enough, in Suicide Squad, the movie, and also in the Liber Mijo Brian Azzarello Joker hardcover, that Vertigo one that turns the Joker into a rapist, which is fucking absurd. But the way that he opens up to Harley in that, like, Harley has all the control in that relationship in that version of them.
Yeah, exactly. So pushing Batman to a whole nother level, attacking the Bat family, that twist at the end, there's so many fucking good things about that, and it's so beautifully drawn. It's beautifully drawn. Is it the where's that, the dinner table scene, or
it's the Batcave? That's
in the Batcave. Oh my god, that scene is good. Like, it's a must. It's a must read. It's a fucking must read. And
out of all of the Mount Rushmore of Batman creators, I think that Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo should be on it as well.
For sure.
They have solidified themselves as core Batman creators. They're
That would be another
fantastic
good.
team.
That's our next top 5. The top 5 people who write Batman. Scott Snyder, Grant Morrison, those motherfuckers are on that list. But anyways, it's just a whole other level of Batman. It really is.
And for all the shit that I think the New 52 got, I think having some of that, like,
freedom?
the freedom allowed them to tell some really interesting stories.
Yeah.
I don't know that Scott Snyder does Court of Owls or Death in the Family or Endgame or Super Heavy in the modern DC continuity.
So. I don't think so. And I'm grateful. That's the one thing I am grateful for, which is so funny because, again, even DC knows, like, you gotta love Batman. You better respect the Batman.
And I like that they had, like, very specific rules for the New 52 except for Batman.
Yeah.
They just, like, let him do what he wanted because it was Batman. And also Scott was telling a killer story and Greg was drawing his fucking ass off. I've never seen him so good. There's a panel of Harvey Bullock talking to Batman on like an apartment corner or something.
Yeah.
Like one of the most beautifully rendered things I've ever seen. There's a panel of Batman talking to somebody that's like behind bars and he's just this huge monolith of shadow. And I was like, I've never seen it better. Like, all it is like, there's like 6 lines for his eyes and then a big black,
Yeah.
but it looks amazing.
He looks so menacing. He looks so fucking cool. Like a ghost, like a spirit, a specter, a fucking angel of vengeance.
That was one of the first comics, maybe one of the only comics I've ever read that made me scared. When Joker shows up in his like Joe the mechanic suit at the GCPD, and you see him in the doorway, but it's real far away. You just kind of see the white of his eye, and
that little like almost gleam, like the little dot.
Dude, I got chills getting. I was like, oh my god. Like, these guys are done.
the covers, the one where the face is on like the black silhouette, and then the one where he's holding it up, and then the one where
he's like smiling with his eyes.
So good, like. And I love how there's always like flies because it's rotting. It's fucking disgusting.
Yeah, I like the idea of Batman being like the Bat King of Gotham, and that the Joker was his jester, and he was like keeping him sharp. You know, he's like, your family has made you weak.
Yeah, and that's the point I was getting to with Scott Snyder. I was like, are you thinking your family's making you weak, bro? Like, holy shit! Like, I feel like this is coming from personal like shit. It's like you're making me a lesser writer, you fuckers.
I think it comes from like. Now I am scared all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like before when I was young and dumb, I don't have to worry about anybody. But now that these people are counting on me, now I have more responsibility. Now the Joker becomes twice as scary because Robin can pay the price for my existence. You know what I mean? And I think your kids are that.
That's 100%. And I think that's why it hit me on another
fucking
level. Yeah,
you're a parent.
Yeah. So that shit is so good. And some of those panels will make you feel really tense. Again, that fucking table scene made me feel really tense. And then the end, which I'm actually not going to spoil, but the end, they kind of put a little bow on it, I guess you could say, is so good.
It's a great choice.
One of
my favorites. So, and all of the issues, there's always this little like, vignette at the end. It's just like a couple of pages, of what's also going on in the periphery of the story. And the Joker shows up at Arkham and he's talking to the Riddler and he's talking to Enigma and he's like, I need you to help me out. You're supposed to be the brains of this fucking thing. We're gonna, put him to the test. We gotta put the king to the test. And we're just like, you can't fucking get out of here. You think I'd want to be here, And he's like, well, you're a smart dude, and if not, then I don't need you. So he puts a gas bomb into his cell. He's like, you're going to be dead in like 20 seconds, so get out or die. Yeah. And Riddler's like, whoa! And he gets out.
That's right. I remember that.
That was hilarious. So good. I loved that moment.
Holy shit.
That was a great Joker moment.
That is good. That is good stuff. Oh my god. Yeah. So that's definitely number 3.
Number 3. All right. So my number 3 is All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely.
It's so
that
good.
Came out a while back, but I still feel that it's quite possibly the greatest Superman story ever told. I think
it is the greatest Superman story.
A lot of Superman stories are predicated on whoever comes to read it, and they have their own idea of who Superman is, and so they can kind of enjoy the ride. This is that idea made into a story. This is all of the like, oh, Superman has all this potential to be the greatest superhero, the greatest story, whatever. All-Star Superman is that great story. It spans time and space. It unites so many of the plot threads and ideas that Grant has had of Superman over the years. And I know after Frank Quitely stopped working on The Authority, his style kind of changed. And this was the first time I had seen his new style work as well as it does. The way that the characters look, they look so hefty. I love that. Quietly, like, he used body language to make people think that Clark and Superman were two different people.
Seeing the side-by-side sketches of him kind of slouch with his hair a little,
he has like the double
oily.
chin.
Yeah, like he's putting he's like making his face look like he has a double chin. And his hair looks kind of oily.
And like the way he parts his hair, and then like when he stands up and he's Superman, his chest is out and stuff. And
that double chin goes away.
And it's another great, like, the last story of, you know, this is Superman on the brink of death. This is Superman about to die. And what is he going to do? And how is he going to spend his life? And there's so much power and weight in every single panel. And there's so much love and heart. Like, what Spider-Verse is for Spider-Man, I feel also Superman is for Superman.
Which, if you could get someone to fucking make that movie.
Well, they did, but they just...
No. Like
Spider-Verse?
Like Spider-Verse, I think, because
oh my God,
there's some images.
All the money at that studio to make All-Star Superman.
Yeah.
But I think it's, like... It's not as frequent as I would like to believe, where you get like a great writer and a great artist and a great character and you put them together and they make great comics. It doesn't always happen. It happens less than I'm comfortable with. It's kind of weird. No. It's like, oh, you would think these... Like, I remember when Mark Waid, and you mentioned Heaven's Ladder, and so that team ended up writing and drawing JLA the proper book, and it just kind of fell apart. It was not very good.
I think they had that. There was a one moment in time. It's like it's like that quarterback that has that good season. It was like, we're gonna sign a 4-year, multi-billion-dollar deal, and then it's like, this fucking dude sucks.
Yeah, or maybe just
Kirk Cousins.
Got him. I don't know that maybe it's also like chemistry, right? Because Mark Waid went on to write a bunch of great shit, and Brian Hitch went on to draw a bunch of great shit.
Fantastic Four.
They were just fantastic. Like, separate and independent of each other, but maybe they just didn't work. Maybe they had that one good story.
Had that one good story.
Yeah,
they probably were like, hey, I have this story. Oh yeah? And then this is my ideas. Oh my God, I could draw the shit out of that. And it became a passion project. And then DC was like, we want you guys to work together more. It's like, oh, okay, well, we'll figure it out. Yeah. And then it's like two guys going, we got this, and like 8 hours in a room together. It's like, we don't up with nothing. Yeah. Like Anthem being worked on for 6 years.
Fairy tales. I don't know. Do you want to do that? It's like, how about the superheroes have their identity separated? I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that.
White Martians? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, but Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely have been working together for years. They've done a lot of stuff together. They did Flex Mentallo, which is another great book, and they worked on several other projects together. But this one was the pinnacle of their like commercial powers. You know, they took the greatest superhero and told the greatest story with him, and it's the absolute version too is actually like a lot of the absolute editions of comics I think are uncomfortable. They're kind of big and heavy and they're hard to read.
Yeah.
But since All-Star Superman's only 12 issues, you know, it's a great collection, and it's oversized and beautiful, and it's totally worth your time. I think.
Is it the first issue? Is it the first issue cover that he's like sitting on the cloud with the sun in the background?
Yeah, and he's like just smiling.
That right there encompasses the whole thing. Like,
exactly,
that's such a perfect cover.
And there's like the fact that the Grant Morrison thought, you know, like, well, if he was Superman, he was invulnerable. He wouldn't be stiff all the time. He would be so relaxed. He'd be so chill because nothing would really be able to hurt him. So
that's true. That's true.
There are a lot of moments he does like he answers the unanswerable question, and he does kind of like the trials of Hercules and stuff, you know, in his own kind of Superman way. And I don't recall, I'm pretty sure, but there's no Batman in it, you know, which I love. Like, it's just about Superman and his histories, and like he goes to the Bizarro world, and you know, he fights those Kryptonians, and there's the Sun Eater and all this shit, and it spans it. Like, it was at the beginning of people starting to really like parallel reality stories and stuff, and all this shit happens, and there's alternate versions of Superman. There's the unknown Superman. He throws away ideas that would make somebody else's entire career, you know, creating comics, and it's just so well done. And you can tell, like, I would say that Superman Birthright is a very, very good, touching fucking Superman origin story. Yeah, but I don't think anything has the heart of the character like All-Star Superman.
I agree, and I actually made a note of that. I was just going to say that if All-Star Superman is one of the perfect Superman stories, its second, like, oh, you're so close, but you're not that yet, is Birthright. And Birthright almost made my list, but I didn't finish it, and
Oh, you
That's,
didn't? Dude, I have it.
I have it. I own it. Okay. I just haven't finished it because I'm a fucking lazy piece of shit, and I like playing video games and eating fucking pizza and sleeping.
Well, these movies aren't going to watch themselves.
Yeah. No, I own it. I love it. That it was one of the best fucking beginnings to a fucking comic. But yeah, I agree. It doesn't. It just falls a little short of the sincerity and the purity and the fucking, like, I mean, not to sound weird, but the sweetness of All-Star Superman. Like, there's a sweet...
It's sweet.
It's like we're never going to read another Superman story again. Here's All-Star Superman. This is how we end it.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, no more. You don't ever make another one again. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's All-Star Superman's a fantastic pick.
Yeah, it's very touching and idealistic, but without being naive.
Yeah,
It's not naive. And I love that there's a scene where, like, one of my favorite moments in this series is, so Clark goes to interview Lex, who's in prison, right? And Lex is, like, working out, and he's like, man, don't you hate Superman? He makes you look like a fool, and blah, blah.
Oh,
and
I know what you're talking about.
Superman's taking notes, but he's using shorthand. And Lex is like, what are you writing? What is this stupid bullshit? And he's like, well, I don't even understand this gibberish, And it's like, it's just shorthand. So it's, like, a small chunk of the, like, Lex genius knocked out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Clark knows he's an asshole. Clark knows that Lex is not the smartest man on the planet.
Yeah.
And I just fucking
love
it. And then
that.
also that the Parasite was there and Clark was there, and he was like, power? Where the fuck is this power? He starts freaking out. And
dude, that was such a good scene.
Yeah,
that's so good.
Lex protect Clark without exposing that Clark was Superman was so much fun.
Oh, that was...
And then the panel that it shows that floats around the internet that is so fucking touching is Superman preventing the goth girl from committing suicide. She's on the roof and she's ready to toss herself off, and Superman just shows up and just tells her that she's worth it. She's worth living. She's worth the effort. And he just hugs her and she just holds on to him. That's Superman.
That is Superman.
He will fight a sun eater, but he will stop somebody from killing themselves by reminding them that they're worth something.
Yeah.
I fucking love that shit. I'm going to go home after this, and I'm going to read All-Star
Superman. I was going to say, I wish I owned it. God damn it.
God, it's so good. But that is my number 3.
That is your number 3?
That's my number 3. So number 2.
Oh, Jesus. Whew. Hold on. Yeah, give me a second there. Okay. Number 2. Finally come across a Marvel book. Technically, whatever.
There's no Marvel on my either. I keep both of my Marvels out.
So number 2 is an actual Marvel book. It was done by Damon Lindelof and Lionel Francis Yu, and it's Ultimate Wolverine versus Hulk. And it makes my number 2 because I've never read such a perfect version of Wolverine and the Hulk. We were going to do a top 5 list of our characters, and if you don't know me by now, Hulk is one of my favorites. Now, I have to come clean that I don't read a fucking shit ton of Hulk stuff. But from what I have read and from what I know of the character and from what I've created in my own mind of what I feel the Hulk is and what major parts that I've read from him, Bruce Banner and the Hulk, this is one of my most favorite versions of that character is in this fucking comic book.
It's a really good one.
The art. And I realized that, I mean, not necessarily on this list, but from the stuff that we've been talking about, Lionel Francis Yu is in a lot of my fucking lists.
Yeah, he's a great artist.
He knocks out Hulk and Wolverine on such a fucking phenomenal level. Like, I just can't speak highly enough of this. The story is really fucking interesting. I remember trying to tell somebody about the whole Wolverine thing where, like, they were like, no, he doesn't have a healing factor. He has a survival factor or whatever. Yeah. And I remember trying to tell someone about that, and they looked at me like I was stupid. I was like, bitch, read the comic. It's so good. Like, I'm not doing it justice. Like, it is perfectly said and read and like...
Right, just fucking read that.
Yeah,
thing.
just
it's only like 6 issues.
I'm not an asshole. I swear, it's good. Like it's so good. But one of the most iconic scenes in that entire thing is, of course, fucking Hulk ripping Wolverine in half.
Which I think we don't have Deadpool getting ripped in half by the Juggernaut. Without that,
exactly. If that was not a clear cut like wink to that, I don't know what it is. And if it's not, they're like, no, I didn't even know that happened. Bullshit. Yeah, you're fucking. You're full of shit. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. There's just so much fucking cool shit, and like there's stuff in there that again I wasn't expecting. You know, like things that I wasn't like ready for. You know, like the She-Hulk thing. Like it's so fucking cool.
Yeah, it's Betty, right?
It is Betty. Like So She-Hulk has to fucking like, I guess not necessarily go put down the Hulk, but like she gets sent out there to fucking, I guess, find him. I can't remember if she needs to stop him or like reason with him. I can't remember exactly. But she winds up banging him, you know, like she hulks and he wants to fight, and she winds up like fucking beating the shit out of him and then banging him.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, like it's like that's how you get to the monster. It's like that monster. It wasn't forced. It was, oh, you're speaking Hulk language. Like this is awesome.
Speaking Hulk language.
it's just so fucking good.
There's a couple of cool moments in that book that I remember, like. That okay, so in the Ultimates universe, Bruce is a vegan, and the Hulk will go around and eat cows just raw, just to fucking shit on him. So when he turns back into Bruce, his body's not used to eating meat again, so he's real sick. I thought that was so funny because they're at war with each other. And then there's that like that kid in Tibet that's kind of like trying to help him open his mind. And we also don't have the fucking things in Ragnarok that those beads on his neck. That's from that. That's from that story. Yes. But he says, maybe you don't turn into the Hulk, maybe the Hulk turns into Banner. And I thought that was really cool.
That's really cool.
What? And then that scene where fucking Wolverine's head is talking to Nick Fury. That shit
oh my god, it's so cool. That's so fucking cool.
So good.
But yeah, like that story, it's just so fucking awesome. And it's one of the only few books, I mean, probably one of two books that I ever... Like, when I read a comic book with Wolverine in it, I always have this, like, gruff, you know, voice in my head. But in this comic book, Ultimate Wolverine vs. Hulk, and in Logan, they're the only two stories that I've ever heard Clint Eastwood's voice as fucking Wolverine. And it fits so fucking well. But yeah, it's so good. And of course, it's Wolverine and Hulk. Like, you don't get any better action than the little fucking animal versus the giant fucking monster. You know what I mean?
I think they're like frenemy-esque relationship is something akin to Daredevil Punisher, but I think theirs is better. I think Hulk Wolverine, and I can't remember what it was. It was one of the Wolverine stories I had read. He was fighting Hulk, and he's like, he basically admits that like Hulk normally wins this fight. He regularly beats Wolverine. Which I think is cool because Wolverine is so popular and so badass, and you know everyone knows who Wolverine is. But for Wolverine to even admit to know, like, I'm never going to back down from this fucking asshole, you know, but he usually puts me in the ground.
It's like, I will
so
never
cool.
not fight him, but
I'm never going to not fight the guy.
Really win these matches.
Yeah.
It's like maybe 1 out of 10. Like,
so that was really cool.
That's my number 2. Again, art is fantastic. The story is really fucking cool.
And it's almost kind of like a blockbuster, you know? It's almost just like...
Yeah, it goes.
Trimmed fat, just action.
It goes, the whole, like, having Nick Fury and, you know, S.H.I.E.L.D. fucking telling Wolverine to go help him out and all this fucking cool stuff. It's just
this
so
was
cool.
kind of, not super early, but still early enough in the Ultimates line for Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. and Wolverine to kind of be first starting to get to know each other. You know, it's like, and pulls him in to do this thing for them, you know?
Yeah.
And this version of Hulk, I think this was Hulk after Ultimates?
Yes, if I'm not mistaken. Because of all the fucking shit that went down. Which is another... The comic is good. It's not great. It would never be on my top 5 list. But in fucking Ultimates where they're fighting the Hulk and they finally put him down in its banner and fucking cat kicks the shit out of him.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in the entire fucking issue.
Again, it's things that were pulled from Ultimates. You know, like them throwing Bruce Banner out of a fucking airplane so that he doesn't die and he turns into the Hulk, saves him. You know?
Yeah.
That's from Ultimates. But it's a good book. I really like it.
Fat Thor's in Ultimates. Just kidding. Spoiler. But yeah, that's my number 2. Great fucking story. Go read it right now.
Yes. And Damon Lindelof, I believe he was one of the creators or writers on Lost, and so
is he really?
Yeah, and him and Brian K. Vaughan. Brian K. Vaughan worked on Lost, and like this was around the time after like Kevin Smith had done Daredevil and Green Arrow and stuff, and Joss Whedon had done X-Men. So these Hollywood writers were, you know, deigning to come to comics, but I don't really think so. I think like Damon and Brian K. Vaughan and stuff, they like always wanted to write comics, and now they're like, oh, it's cool, we can come too, you know, like instead of it being like the comics industry, like, excuse me, sir, could you please maybe, you know, the big sweaties like, in Hollywood were like, can we can write something, and it showed. Like, I feel like Damon had a lot of fun writing that story.
You could tell.
Like a lot of fun.
Yeah, you could tell, and I feel like if Damon and fucking Lionel we're in a room talking. Like Lionel's always good, but I feel like he had a lot more fun because there's some panels in that shit that's just like you're taking your shit to a whole nother level.
Do you want to draw? What do you want to draw?
Yeah. What do you want to draw? It's like
because I have an idea for in a story, but I can throw these things in before you.
It's like right. It's like what are the top 5 things you want to draw? It's like well, I want to draw fucking. Give me a reason why Hulk would fucking manhandle. I mean, She-Hulk would manhandle Hulk into fucking, and I want to rip Wolverine in half.
On it.
Okay, on it. I got you. I will figure that out.
Okay, so my number 2 is an image series called Phonogram, and it's a series of miniseries, and I think there's 3 of them by Karen Gillan and Jamie McKelvey, and the second volume is my favorite. It's called The Singles Club, and Phonogram, the soft elevator pitch is music is magic. Mm-hmm. So phonomancers are mystics that use music to fuel their sigils, to fuel their spells, to fuel their magic. So that's how they work. The first volume was kind of like a straight magic gone wild story, but the Singles Club was a collection of hits, quote unquote. Gillan used to write for a real popular British music magazine, and he was like a music reviewer, and then he started writing comics, and that was kind of like his dream. But his hipstery musical snobbery comes out in this book, and David Cole as his avatar in the comics world is really funny. He even gives him like a receding hairline. He's getting older. His hair, which I love. But the Singles Club is a miniseries collected of interactions during a single night, and this show is called Never on a Sunday, and so it's a female musician only show, or I guess club night, and all these phonomancers kind of converge, and it's just what happens on this night through all these different eyes. And McKelvey is such a good artist. He's the guy that kind of he's redesigned costumes for Marvel. He's done all sorts of great work on Wicked and the Divine, which he also did with Karen. But his lines are so clean, and he takes if you look at it, it's so simple, but you can see his 3D layouts and renderings where he gets the perspective and the lay of the whole club. You never see it in the comics. You know what I mean? Cool. But he knows what it looks like. He knows how everyone is in relation to each other and where they are on the dance floor at what time during what story. And I thought that was really cool.
That's a whole nother level of awesome. I could never fucking imagine. That's so cool.
And so all these stories are about each it follows one of these hipsters, But David Cole, the main character from Phonogram in the first one, is just kind of on the outside. None of the stories are about him, which I really liked. He's just there.
Yeah.
And there's a story about Emily Astor where she has to confront a version of herself that she sacrificed to become the person that she is. And so she is haunted by this spirit that is who she was. Mm-hmm. And she's constantly she's constantly shitting on that version of herself to maintain her power base and to maintain who she is. And I feel like that's universal. We all kind of there's a version of us that we grow up and really enjoy, but I feel like we get too much dirt on them. And there's we have to just kill that version of ourselves and become something new. And so it's kind of told in book form. Yeah. And then there's the elitist snob character that is just an asshole. Your knowledge doesn't make you a better music appreciator, doesn't make you a better musician or magician. It just makes you an asshole. Yeah. And that character's there. You know? There's the super hot pixie dream girl, that is just effortlessly magical. And then there's the friend that is envious and shitty and pretends to be close to that person, but is only ever harboring ill intent for them. You know?
Oh, we know.
And we know people like that too. And then there's Kid with Knife at the end, who's just the most bonehead jock rock listening to fan ever. And we're also so Phonogram really speaks to me because I feel like this. I feel for a long time I was a big music snob. I was kind of a hipstery, wannabe dickhole. Especially when I lived in Austin, it was terrible. But so this comic spoke to me in more than one way. And Kid with Knife is just a dude that he'll listen to Seether and Wu-Tang Clan and Gang of Four and all this weird crazy whatever he likes. And David Cole's kind of explained to him music is magic and how it works and the rituals and shit. And he's are you fucking shitting me? Everybody does that, and you see him get charged up with his dark wolf energy. It's so badass because you're like, he's like, dummies, we all do that. You're not special because you know a band's name. We all feel that energy of magic and from music,
Yeah,
I fucking love it so much, and there's so much it's a build up and so much incessant name dropping, but also a tear down of that. That culture of God, we're just so fucking up our own asses. You know? And it's kind of
so
well
self-reflecting.
Yeah,
shit.
yeah,
That's fucking cool.
And there's an issue that's called Konnichiwa Bitches, and that was taken from a Robin song. I think every single one of the issues names is from a song. And the first series, all the covers were based on famous album covers, but in that issue, it's about the DJ and his co-DJ, and just them playing music and the things that they're into, and the amount of movement that McKelvey puts into that book is second to none. I have a stencil that a friend of mine did while I lived in Austin. So it's an embroidered framed piece of cloth.
I think I remember this.
You remember
Yes,
that?
I've seen
I have that
this.
on one of my bookshelves that she did for me. That's a panel from them. It's Emily, Kid with Knife, and David all dancing together.
I have seen that.
And I swear, every time I see that, it makes me want to dance. I love that book. And in Konnichiwa Bitches, I actually have a letter printed in there. I had read the issue.
I remember that, yes.
I read the issue before, and I was so upset, and I was like, you know what? Fuck this fucking book. It's so pretentious. It's so hipstery, but I love it to pieces. So I sent in a letter, and Kieran emailed me back, and he's like, hey, man, is it cool if I publish this in the letters column? I was like, oh, shit. Sure, please do.
Please. I love you.
So, so I'm in that, and it's so fucking dumb. But I always feel like this thing was magical and represented a very specific time. It was comics, it was music, it was hipsterdom, it was getting outside of yourself, it was magic. And my name is in there. My name is a part of the actual printing of
I remember
book.
that. I do remember. That's so fucking cool.
So, and that's the only, I think I've written letters to a handful of places, and that's the only one that's ever published one. But... So I'm in Phonogram. That's
so fucking cool. I remember you telling me about that, and I remember reading that fucking part. That's so cool. I unfortunately never got to read Phonogram,
and I don't even know that you would really like it. You know what I mean?
I probably would though, because every once in a while I like reading something that's so not up my alley. When you let me borrow Ghost World, I remember kind of going, "Am I really gonna like this?" And I read that whole fucking thing in one night, going, "God damn, this is so fucking good." So I mean, I think you've let me read a couple of things that weren't the typical superhero action thriller stuff. Ghost World was one, and then fucking what's that other one? Transmetropolitan is the other one. I remember reading some of that, going, God damn, this is so fucking good. So every once in a while, I do enjoy the.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna constantly buy copies of Transmetropolitan just to hand them out to people. My friend Garrett at my last job, he has my copies of Transmet. Just even when I left that job, I was like, just read these. I don't care if you keep them forever. Just read it.
Just read them. Just read them. Yeah, they're so good. But yeah, that's one that I remember seeing a lot of the art, and I could see, again, one of the reasons why I love comic books. I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because it's really dusting off a lot of the old emotions that hit me in the feels.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love about good comic books is when you see certain panels and you can see the movement. You know what I mean? There's a couple of scenes, and it's probably in that specific series you're talking about, where I feel like I can hear the music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's lights and stuff, and I feel like I can hear the music, and I can feel the beat of a club, and it really hits that moment where you're like, I remember going to clubs.
Yeah, you remember it, where it's 12:45, about to be 1, and your buzz is coming on strong.
Yeah.
And you sort of don't care, but you want to dance.
Yeah.
And you want to be around other people, and other people are in the same headspace.
Yeah, you have that cup with a straw, and you're like, woo, yeah.
Yeah, or you somehow just stumble or shuffle or don't even know how you ended up on the dance floor, but you're there, so might as well dance.
It's like this weird moment in time at the club. It's just almost kind of like a fucking realization of mortality. It's like, oh, it's 1. Which means in another hour, this club is closing. And it's like, I want to have fun. And you kind of
you
for
make
some
the most
people,
of that hour?
Yeah, you make most of that hour. For some people, it's drinking more. For other people, it's drinking more and going to dance. And for other people, it's hunting for that piece of ass that they want to go find. And it's that moment of like time is running out. You know what I mean? And I can't do this for another six fucking days.
Time is running out. We're all so young, and we're gonna die so old and alone. Like, let's just do something. Let's have a feeling.
Let's have a feeling tonight, even if it ends with just fucking eating a Whataburger.
Yeah,
I want to.
Dude, and nothing feels more sobering than when like the house lights come on. You know, or it's like in all of it's just like this terrible fluorescent, just yellow light. You're just like, ew.
You ain't gotta go home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and everyone's like,
out. You hear the cleaning of bottles being thrown
moving
away.
out, but like slowly and begrudgingly. And
That's it. Yeah, it's so fucking awesome. Jesus Christ.
But there's some panel work in there, like I said, by McKelvey that is some of my favorite in comics. And there's a scene in the first episode. I keep saying that first issue that was called Pole Shapes, and I had just found the Pipettes. Like that title of that issue is pulled from a Pipette song, and I had just found that band like weeks before that series started. But she's kind of the main character is dancing, and she's looking around, and there's only one panel, and Emily Astor and David are there, and it's like the world we've been introduced to are like, these are the young hipsters, right? But that one panel just shows, David and Emily, and you're like, no, those are the coolest of the cool kids. And I love that. He has this fucking grin on his face. He's just so menacing, It's like, yeah, keep trying.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have as much. He's just like a black shirt on, and just like, I do not need all the bells and whistles. I am the coolest of the cool kids. I really love that. And Emily, too.
Is fucking cool.
But
God,
anyway,
awesome.
I fucking love Phonogram. I have the third volume. It's called Immaterial Girl, and that's more about Emily Astor, but I haven't finished it yet. I read the first 3 issues, and then I don't know. I think something happened, and I stopped. But I ended up getting the issues eventually from my old job, so I need to sit down and read it.
That's so.
But yeah, Phonogram, The Singles Club by Jamie McKelvey and Karen Gillan, my number 2.
Very, very nice. It makes me want to read that. I think I need to read that. So, boiling down to number 1.
Yeah, it's your number 1.
Number 1, obviously, was going to be a Batman book. I mean, goddamn.
Was there ever a doubt?
Was there ever a doubt?
Audience?
Internet, we need you to throw a comment on the YouTube video, and
if there's a doubt in your mind.
If there's a doubt in your mind,
just tweet us, yes or no. Just yes or no.
Just yes or no. DC's Long Halloween by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale is my number 1 favorite story, favorite series, favorite arc, whatever. 13 issues, if I'm not mistaken, of fucking amazingness. It's so funny because we'll get into a lot of the little things I like, but there's one thing that always pops out in this story to me, and I hope I'm not getting it wrong. I hope I'm not getting it confused with Dark Victory, because I love Dark Victory as much too, and sometimes I feel like I always have to clump in Long Halloween and Dark Victory, but no, I'm sticking with just the one, Long Halloween. But I'm 99.9% sure I'm correct on this. One of the parts, the moments, the setups that always stuck with me is how they portray Solomon Grundy. And when he goes to the sewer and he's like confronting Solomon Grundy, and like that, I don't know what it is. The way they draw him, the way they use him in that story, and the way it all concludes in the thing where fucking Batman brings him the fucking Thanksgiving meal.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about that scene, that moment. Like, it's such a human moment for Batman. Again, going back to the Batman, like one thing that, and it's actually not a lot of people, but some people that still get confused with the idea of why Batman doesn't kill the Joker. It's like he doesn't kill him because he wants to save him, because Batman, in the core of the character, the reason why me and Gonzalo love this character so much, the reason why so many people love Batman so much, is because his biggest flaw is that he's trying to help. You know what I mean? When it comes to the city, he took on an entire fucking identity to create this fucking massive change because he knew it couldn't be done correctly. He knew the system was broken. He knew that there was a level of corruption that he would never be able to break, no matter how much money he threw at it. He had to get into the mud. He had to get really to another level, and he had to create a symbol for that.
Yeah, he would sacrifice his happiness, his life, his body, and his
mind. Everything.
Yeah, he would sacrifice everything for a war he would not win.
For a war he would not win. Why? Because he does not want what happened to him to ever happen to another child again.
And he knows he's not
fucking amazing.
Yeah, he's not going to save them all, but he will save up as many as he can.
Yeah, he can't save all the Bruces of the world, but he will save fucking some of them. And it's awesome. And so when it comes to the dynamic of the Joker, it's the same thing. It's like he knows that the Joker's sadistic. He knows he's fucked in the head, but if there's a glimmer of hope, if there's a chance where Batman will extend his hand, knowing that there's a good chance there's going to be a fucking electric buzzer on that fucking hand, he's going to do it. Because he will never not be Batman. Because that's what Batman is. The savior of Gotham. The savior of humanity. The savior of one person. That's his function. So when stories don't get that right, those Batman stories aren't that great. But when stories get that part right, these Batman stories are awesome. And I feel in that one scene, after confronting Solomon Grundy and having the typical Batman fucking, event moment and shit, when he goes back to the sewers and leaves him the fucking Thanksgiving plate for Solomon Grundy, I don't know why, it hits me in the feels. It's so good. Like, and there's a lot of awesome scenes in that entire stuff. There's so many good things, but that's the one. Like, have you ever tried to tell somebody about a song, but you keep having a song play in your head? It's fucking you up from thinking. It's like, I'm trying to tell you about this song from, fucking Band of Horses, but this fucking song from, Depeche Mode is in my head and I can't stop fucking singing it in my head. Like, I want to talk about so many things about Long Halloween, but that one moment I don't know why. It's so weird. Like, but it's so good. It's such a Batman moment. Like, he didn't have to bring him shit. It's fucking Batman. It's so good. Yeah.
So, I never read this until Marcus let me borrow his copy. That's how I got to read Long Halloween. And up until this point, I used to hate Tim Sale's artwork because Tim Sale took over Deathblow, and Jim Lee was drawing Deathblow. And
you can't go from Jim Lee to Tim Sale.
Yeah, you can. It's just it's such a different. Like, I wasn't mature enough for it yet, right?
Yeah,
but
I don't think you can go from
Jim
Lee
to
Tim Sale with Deathblow. That's a rough sell, even as an adult.
It's a gear change. But I mean, at this time, Jim Lee was my favorite artist of all time. But I read Long Halloween, and just the language of his art in that book, I completely flipped, and I was like, "Yo, Tim Sale is the fucking man." Like,
he has a way of doing stuff with eyes. Like when you Calendar Man, the way he looks at Batman, or the way he looks at the viewer sometimes. Like, there's a weird sincerity, like a. Almost not a dopiness, but like a you know what I mean? Like this, I don't know what it is. The Joker, the intensity that he can capture in his eyes, and that grin that he gives him.
Yeah,
that fucking weird jagged teeth grin with the jaw that almost comes out a little too much, but it's so fucking cool looking.
Yeah, I think that Tim Sale forgoes realism for style, and so cool.
Every once in a while, Batman's ears are a little too long, but then sometimes it's perfect. It's like, it
sometimes
looks so
his ears look like they're gonna break. Like his lines are kind of squiggly, and his shadows are weird. And like his Gordon, his cartoonish mustache.
Yeah.
But it all works in his style. He's a very, very clear storyteller. He knows how to tell a fucking story, and he's very stylized. Like, I love his work. And I had read Dark Victory before I read Long Halloween, and even in Dark Victory I didn't love it that much, you know? But when I read Long Halloween, I was completely I was a Tim Sale fan.
I guess that speaks volumes of how good that story really is. So in Long Halloween, just to kind of give a little basis, you have these murders being committed on on holidays, and Batman's trying to figure it out, and through his detective work, he obviously encounters almost his entire fucking rogues gallery,
the majors,
trying to figure out what's going on. I don't think it was the introduction, but it's the introduction to me of Carmine Falcone and more of the underworld of itself. And I remember that there was a fucking sweet ass twist at the end, and I can't for the life of me remember it right now, but I what was that fucking twist? I know, because I thought it was setting up for something of who the killer was, and then you come to find out that it wasn't, and it was someone else, and I can't remember. No, in Long Halloween. And I can't remember the fucking twist. That's really bugging me right now, but it is this very oh shit twist to it. and it's really cool. But the way I think the Joker was Halloween, right?
I think so.
Yeah, because there's a scene where he's in the fireplace in the fucking chair with all the pumpkins and shit. And he's like, "Happy Halloween!" Like, the introduction of I had never really known too much about Calendar Man, and I always heard that he was this big fucking joke.
Yeah,
but Calendar Man in Long Halloween is really interesting. He's a very interesting fucking character. More in line with not necessarily a Hannibal Lecter, not that, but like that.
But kind of.
That skilled, like, I'm a lot fucking smarter than you think I am. You know what I mean? A lot more methodical. And I dug that because, like I said, I never knew much about Calendar Man, so seeing how he was and the way they drew him too. I think they also don't they have fucking what's that one fucking guy? They introduced someone else too. Oh my god. Oh no, I might be getting it confused with another issue. I might be getting it confused with Arkham Asylum. Never mind. We'll scratch that out right now.
You're thinking Max Caesars?
Yeah. Is he in Long Halloween? He's in Dark Victory.
He's in Arkham Asylum.
God damn it. And there's another one too. Yeah, it was him, and then there's another guy, but I'm thinking that's Arkham Asylum. See, then I'm getting my comics confused. Where
you just need to reread it.
That's I just need to fucking reread it. But again, please understand that Long Halloween was a fucking comic that made me realize. Long Halloween made me realize that there was bad Batman comics out there. Right. If that makes any sense. Yeah, it was like, this is the detective. Like, I was so used to kind of swashbuckly Batman in certain series that I would buy. Or, you know, of course, him having a fucking, like, a war on fucking Gotham. You know, like, with Bane fucking taking over and No Man's Land and shit like that. Like, I'm so used to, like, just Batman beats the shit out of everybody. Like, this was the detective story that got me really excited for, like, no. I want to hear Batman talk. You know what I mean? I want to hear him piece things together. I want him to, like, he visits certain criminals to get information out of them. Like, it's so fucking cool. It's almost like a cop drama. You know, a detective story where they have to go visit these people, but they're just the characters you know. You know, they're villains you know, and it's just so fucking awesome.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's not necessarily a year one story, but it's early in his career.
It's early in his career.
And Harvey's still Harvey. He's not Two-Face yet.
Yeah.
And there's that scene where that you're putting it together, right?
No, go. Yes,
so
go.
I'm remembering. Where, Harvey, they do the flashback for Harvey, and he's sitting there, and they toss the acid in his face, and the panel that Tim Sale draws, and he's just like, he's leaning back, and the acid is like leaving the bottle.
Yeah.
It's burned into my brain.
Yes.
And then the scene in Dark Knight, the movie, where Harvey, Commissioner Gordon, and Batman are sitting and they're talking on the roof. Yes. That's pulled from Long Halloween. Long Halloween.
Yeah, yes.
Which I thought was fantastic.
Oh, that's so good. That is so good. Okay, well, anyways, I'm not going to... If I can't remember, I'm not going to spoil it. Because if anyone is interested, it is one of...
Yeah, if there's a handful of people out there that haven't read Long Halloween...
It is one of the most acclaimed fucking stories. You can get it on Amazon. I think it's like $12 for a paperback. Total $14, unless it went up. Because I remember I was gonna rebuy it because I have the big.
Go to a half price.
I think you got it for me. You got me the big fucking Absolute. And I love reading it, but sometimes you just want the smaller. Like, no, I need a.
That's why I gotta get like the trade paperbacks of some of my favorites because I just want to be able to read them.
Yeah.
So I have this badass huge collection, hardcover, deluxe versions, but it prevents me from reading them comfortably. So I think Long Halloween is a fantastic choice, and it's a great Batman story. It's a great Gordon story. It's a great Harvey story. It's a great Gotham story.
It is a great Gotham story.
And I think
a little bit of Thomas Wayne in there, a little bit of some past shit. Like,
if all you know of Jeff Loeb is that he executive produces a lot of the Marvel shows and that he wrote Ultimatum and that he did like Batman Hush, I implore you to go read Long Halloween and Superman for All Seasons as well, some of his Marvel work. But like, Jeff Loeb is a fantastic writer, and if he never writes another great thing, which, you know, there's maybe some good money that he might not have read.
Yeah, I'm sure, right?
He'll have always written Long Halloween, and it's so fucking good. Like, the bombast that is Hush is just dwarfed by the meditation that is The Long Halloween. I fucking love The Long Halloween.
Dude, it's really pissing me off that I can't remember. But I think...
Just read it again!
It's after Two-Face fucking becomes Two-Face.
You're gonna spoil it if you don't remember.
No,
you can't talk through it.
Okay, no, it was okay. I remember now. Oh my god. Okay, it's so good. Okay, Gonzalo, go. Oh my god.
So, Batman Long Halloween, Tim Sale, Jeff Loeb.
Yes.
You can find it anywhere in any number of editions, but like I said, you can go to Half Price Books or go to Amazon, go to Comixology, go to fucking... If you have the DC Universe streaming app, they have comics on there. Watch it there or read it there.
Really? Really?
Yeah, they have thousands of comics on there.
No shit.
It's not worth the money, but...
Oh.
I mean, just for the
Comixology
content,
would probably be better.
I guess it depends. You know, like, the problem I think with the DC Universe app is that there's a bunch of stuff on there that everybody already owns, you know? And none of the great shit, because that stuff's licensed out to other places. So, why don't they have everything, you know?
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
But yeah, so, Long Halloween.
Long Halloween. Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday.
Yeah, I love that fucking book. The covers are immaculate. The design are so good. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, surprising no one, my number one comic story of all time is also a Batman story, and it is the Batman story.
The Batman story.
The Dark Knight Returns. I don't know. Before we started recording, I asked Marcus, do you think there's a better Batman story than The Dark Knight Returns? And though everybody has their own personal preference and taste,
it was like second would be Long Halloween.
I would really like to know everyone's thoughts on this, and I don't mean to come off like I know it all. I don't feel like that's not why I'm saying is there a better one. But in my estimation, it just seems like, so I really want to know, is there a better story, a better Batman story than The Dark Knight Returns? This is Frank Miller and his then wife, Lynn Varley, whose colors are fan-fucking-tastic in that book. I love it.
Wasn't it like
so
watercolors?
Much. Yeah, she does this like watercolors. Oh, it's so good. It makes me feel hot because it's super hot before the storm breaks when Bruce comes back, and just like the rain, the mud, you know, everything.
I never felt the heat, but I felt the rain and the humidity, like the wetness. Yeah,
that's what
I felt that
humidity. That's like,
she does the skies, the dark blues with the little.
It looks almost like the end of the world.
Yeah,
in Gotham, but it's just like it's the end of this version of Gotham and the beginning of a new one, which I really love.
Not a brick in mud,
but. The fucking Dark Knight Returns is something that I think is never been duplicated and is constantly being imitated in comics. And it'll always be. Forever and ever. For as long as there's superhero comics, there's going to be versions of The Dark Knight Returns. But nothing is as good. The Dark Knight Returns as a story is just so entertaining. But the fact that it's Bruce Wayne and it's Batman and they take that mythology and launch into the future and give him this end. And like Frank Miller is personally responsible for making Superman and Batman not like each other.
Yeah,
there is no
feud.
Yeah, there is no feud without The Dark Knight Returns. Yeah. And I think, love forever to Frank for this book, but also a bit of like, God damn it, Frank, because he, I think, really tore down the name of Superman. He does. Strong a book as this is, its place in the comics canon, I think a lot of people picture Superman as the Superman from Dark Knight Returns.
Yes, and that is a problem.
They don't give him a chance. They don't give him the like.
It's the greatest Batman comic book, and it's the worst fucking Superman fucking like portrayal.
But even then, like at the end, like Clark lets Bruce get away with it. He knows that he's alive, and he's cool with it. Yeah. He's like, fine, like my man is alive, and it's all I care.
I did what I needed to do.
I did what I did. I gave my word to the President of the United States, and I kept my word. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to
pursue it. Yeah, I'm not going to go. Yeah, I'm done.
Mm-hmm. And I love too. There's a moment. So at the end when Clark and Bruce are fighting, and Bruce is beating the snot out of fucking Superman. And he's being an asshole to him too, right? Talking all this shit. Once his heart starts to give, Clark immediately snaps into his friend. He's just like, oh, Bruce, are you okay? Like, he's all fucking welted up and shit while his eyes is closed, But he's holding on to him like, don't die.
That is a very Superman moment.
Yeah, and he's just holding him. He's like, the only reason I'm here is because I have to be, And because you're such a fucking stubborn dude.
Yeah.
But and I know Frank Miller has drawn some of the most beautiful, iconic images in comics history, but I don't think he's any better than in Dark Knight Returns.
I totally agree with that, because even when he did the sequel, I didn't like. It actually turned.
Yeah, not even that, but like stuff like 300 or Sin City. His stuff is really good, and Ronin, and even his stuff in Daredevil. That stuff was really good, but man, Dark Knight Returns, that right there. 'Cause he did Sin City after Dark Knight Returns, and Sin City is fucking beautiful. And it's hard to how do you map that kind of art out in your head. You know, he's such a great storyteller. But Dark Knight Returns is just, there's so much power. There's so much
weapons, both of them.
Oh god.
Anyway, sorry.
There's okay, I think maybe the first comic that ever got me really emotional was Dark Knight Returns. And there's a scene where, you know, like these doctors have reconstructed Harvey's face.
Oh my
and
god,
so
that's
he's
so good.
both sides match. And they're like, oh, he's fine. But then eventually he breaks, right? And Batman's back on the case, and he's like, you know, Gordon's like, go take care of it. Like, we have to get Harvey back. He's like, fine, I'll take care of him. So he goes and he finds him, and you know,
save Harvey. No.
Yeah, he ends up like flying through a window, and he tackles Harvey Dent. He's like, we tumble like lovers, and all this shit.
That's a good line.
So he stops him, and what's his name? Harvey is just kind of like, he's so frustrated and so hurt, and it's like, you got them to keep their food down when they look at me. You know, you got them to not look at the monster, and you know, they just saw the pretty face or whatever. And it's like, but they just like have your laugh. You know, he's all fucked up. He's so emotionally scarred, and he's just a mess. And there's two panels next to each other, and Bruce is like, he's screaming at Bruce, and then Bruce is like, I see him for how he truly is. And he's like, whole mangled face. It's like if Two-Face's bad side was a whole face, and it just, oh my god, it makes me want to cry every time I read it. And it's just because he's like, that's who he is. And Harvey stops fighting. He just knows, he's just at the end, he's just like crying. He's just he's a wreck, you know. And there's no amount of plastic surgery that'll make him feel better. There's nothing that you can do to heal that human's brain.
Yeah.
And Bruce just, I can make you feel comfortable. That's all I can do, you know. And God, it's so good. And
that is. Oh,
the build up and the storytelling when like Bruce has the like mustache, and then all of a sudden he doesn't realize he shaved it because the persona's coming back to him.
Yes!
He's like, I don't remember shaving my mustache. He almost dies at the beginning, and
the little comments he makes when he's like doing his shit is like, that's gonna hurt tomorrow, or like, you know, fucking I'm a lot slower than what I remember.
Yeah.
Like I love shit like that.
He says something about the mutant leaders, like he shows me what a powerful kick really is, and like fucks his ribs up and shit. That stuff was really cool. I like that there was
what does he fucking say? God, that line is so badass. This isn't a fucking a mud pit, this is an operating table.
Yeah.
Oh exactly. God, that's so good.
He just says something like, something tells me to stop at the knee, I don't listen to it. He's just like fucking breaking his knee apart. And that movie, I
think real quick, that's one thing that, even though Sin City pulled it off, I think that's one thing that comic books will always do forever better than anything ever. It's those like inner monologue moments in the comic where it's like, you know, that line right there. It's like, you know, something tells me to stop at the knee and I don't listen. Like, that gets pulled off in a comic book, and it's very hard to pull off in a movie, because even with Sin City, you read that and it's so fucking poetic and so deep and beautiful. And then you watch Sin City, and the first time you watch it, it's like, oh my god, so awesome. But when you watch it now, you're like, this is kind of hard to watch. It's a little cringy, you know?
Yeah.
But anyways, continue. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. But The Dark Knight Returns, it hits so many. You get the idea that, okay, so this is the last story of the Batman, right? And he's far into his age, and what does that entail? It's like, yeah. And he's like coming back to being Batman. It's like, well, what does that mean for the world? And so we touch it with Two-Face. And then we get the Joker. And the Joker is someone that has been locked up since Batman disappeared and has not smiled. And when he comes back, that finally, it brings him back. And he smiles and he says, darling, and he's just so fucking happy. And he immediately works out a way to get out. Right? And he ends up on that talk show, and
dude, that's one of the best scenes when he's talking to the Letterman-esque character, and he has the makeup, and he's putting on the fucking makeup. Like, it didn't click to me what he was doing. Like, you know, it's like, oh no, this is the return of the Joker as best as I can be. Like, oh my god, that's so fucking
that super
cool.
red lipstick on it. It's so badass.
It's so fucking good.
And I like even too that, like, keeping with the humanity of Bruce, there's a scene at the end where he's having his final duel with the Joker, right? And he paralyzes him, cracks his neck, but he doesn't kill him.
Yeah.
Right? He can't bring himself to do it. And even at the end of all things, where he no longer has to uphold his standard, right? He's old. This is the end, and the Joker just killed hundreds of people.
Yeah, he fucked them people up.
And he just has those
like
two, like, those twins that are like dolls, that are like Raggedy Ann and Andy, you know? But he just can't do it. He cannot kill the Joker. And so the Joker kills himself by twisting his neck the rest of the way. And it kills him. So also then the GCPD thinks that the Batman killed him. One of the most human moments is, so that happens, and Batman just has to watch. He just watches the Joker kill himself, and he knows what it means. But then when it's like one final goodbye and he spits on him. That was so perfect. Because like he tried so many times, and no one can ever say that he never tried to save this fucking dude. He tried and tried and tried. And every fucking time the Joker just spit in his face. So one last time Bruce is just like, fuck you. Good riddance. Spits on his head. And then the introduction of Carrie Kelly, I thought was really well done. It's nice to have Robin in the mythos. There was a Batmobile. It's like a fucking tank.
Bat tank.
There's that scene where the mutant leader ends up going to prison, right? And he's sitting in the jail cell, and the lawyer has to go in and talk to him. And he's like, well, I don't know. It's like, we're going to be fine. He's like locked up. We're going to be right outside. And so the little lawyer, he's all, like a nerd. He like looks all scared, and then it shows a picture of the mutant leader, and he's smiling with his eyes closed. He has like fucking shark's teeth.
Yeah.
And then the door shuts, and then you just hear this scream, and it's like you just see Gordon's reaction to what he's seeing.
Yeah.
And he's just horrified, and it's so fucking disturbing, man. You're like, God damn.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole Sons of the Bat, where Batman proves that he is, he's like the apex predator, and so everybody like bows to him, the mutant gang, and he's riding a fucking horse. He rides a horse.
He
breaks that shotgun. He's like, these are the guns of these are the weapons of the enemy. They're weak and they're loud and they're clumsy. Like, that's not our weapons. That's what you use your wits. You use your fists.
Even though he technically uses a sniper rifle.
It's a gun. It's a grappling gun.
No,
it's not a sniper rifle.
It looks like a sniper rifle.
It's a string. It's a stringer.
I know, but it looks like a sniper rifle. They make it look like the grappling gun. Yeah, it looks like a sniper rifle. But I think the other badass part, and I think we touched on it already, but him fighting the fucking mutant leader in the mud is one of the most fucking coolest fight scenes, because they really kind of like, oh shit, Batman's old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because in my head, I'm like, man, Batman's gonna fuck this dude up. And that mutant leader beats the shit out of him. Well, they beat the shit out of each other, but then, it turns.
No, I think the mutant leader's fine.
Yeah.
After that fight, that first encounter.
Yeah.
But the second one where he's like, I have to slow him down. He uses his brain and his brawn to defeat this monster.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool.
That was really awesome. Green Arrow fucking helping
Oliver,
out.
yeah.
That was so, like, he
has like one arm.
Yeah, he has one arm.
Because Superman burned off one of his arms.
Yeah.
It's like crazy.
It's like, you ain't doing arrows no more. Like, bitch.
Right, that's all I do.
That's all I do. The introduction of the fucking big bat armor suit and being powered, like him draining the fucking
it's
energy
basically
from the city.
it's like Gotham versus Superman, which is really cool.
I never really thought about that.
Yeah, because he's power from the city itself. He's like the power grid.
Oh my god!
So I really
Number one, DC Long Halloween, get off. Like, I never even clicked to that. Like, he's using the power of the city to fuel his suit to fight Superman.
Yeah, it's like his last stand, and he's like all of Gotham is behind him because he has fought for them for so long. It's really, really touching.
That is deep.
It's funny though, because it's like a
plug.
Socket.
Yeah, it's just a plug. It's just a plug into a lamp. What lamps have plugs like that?
And it's like, it's cool because the synthetic kryptonite that he's made, he talks in his monologue about like spending a fortune on it and this and that. It's like, of course, Bruce trying to do like what is right and what is best, he'll always be a little paranoid. So like, I better just in case, like, Bruce can see the writing on the wall, right? In this universe, he can see where the world is headed. So he needs to have contingencies for all of them.
Yeah.
Which he does,
Yeah.
Which helps. And which, in all fairness to Superman, isn't even enough. Like, this is the super grade A fucking synthesized Batman created kryptonite. And it just kind of bothers him for a while.
Yeah, it barely
like, Superman's able to, like, get over it. And then they finish their fight. But it's really visceral. It feels raw. It feels like the best of comics. The art is jagged and it's not perfect. You can tell that this art was not created on a computer. This art was created on a board with inks and pencils and graphite paints, and it just really shows it's so full of life. And not that I have anything against digital art. I think digital art has its place, like all art. And if you're creating something, make it be a part of the conversation. I'll give a shit, but there's something that I like more about about the tactile art that you could find. Like, there are things in the world that I love that are just files on a computer. There is no physical version of that.
Yeah.
But there are pages of Dark Knight Returns that you could touch and run your hand over. You could feel the grooves of the pen and the pencil, and the brush, which I love too. And it's a great story. It's a great Batman story. It's easily my favorite Batman story ever. It's my favorite comic story of all time. I think that superheroes utilize the comics art form better than any other genre, and he's the best of the superheroes, and this is the best story with him in it.
I agree.
So I'd say
I wholeheartedly agree with
Dark Knight
all
Returns is my number one.
And the only reason it wasn't my number one is because it was your
Because you know. Well, we had a discussion about, like, should we leave certain things off? Like, Watchmen should be on this list for me, V for Vendetta. I debated Killing Joke and Dark Knight because everybody talks about them, and it would be fun to kind of explore the things that people don't get to talk about. It's like, oh, of course Dark Knight is my number one. Why? All the reasons that I explained. Yeah, but a million other people have explained that too. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the first person to ever recognize these things about the Dark Knight. But at the same time, like you had said, to be honest with yourself, what are the comics that shaped you? These are the 5 stories that if everything was on fire and I could grab 5, these would be the 5 I would grab.
Yeah, exactly. Although technically Dark Knight would get grabbed before Long Halloween on my list, but trying to omit Dark Knight so we didn't have double did Long Halloween is definitely the second runner up to that one. But yeah, like you said, like fucking Transformers G.I. Joe is like literally the perfect, I guess, weirdly adult version of what I grew up with, set in the fucking era of like the most mature like shit you could get into in World War II. Fucking Identity Crisis punched me in the gut. I never expected to see spandex heroes deal with such fucking crazy topics. And then, you know, Death in the Family going fucking crazy with the Joker. And then my perfect version of Wolverine and the Hulk. And then of course Long Halloween. I think Long Halloween just hits me. I think Long Halloween does hit me a little bit more sometimes than Dark Knight Returns, just because of...
I think so too. I think
because of the way they use the villains and the way like it was that true detective story. Like Dark Knight Returns will always be in my head the greatest Batman story ever told. But when it comes to my top 5 stories, like I do think Long Halloween does come because it's like my perfect like. Just make that in a movie. Like Dark Knight Returns is like, yeah, no, we're gonna make that as a movie, but this is an Elseworld tale. Like this it's not really canon, because I know there was a weird thing where it was like, no, it's not canon, and then like DC was trying to make it like, no, it's eventually gonna be canon. Yeah, and it's like, no, I like it on its own thing. Yeah, and you make it, they force it to become that thing. It's like, no, it's a thing on its own. Versus Long Halloween's like, no, that's a thing that happened to Batman. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it's good as list, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time for the list, and like I think you cite Long Halloween way more than you do Dark Knight.
I think I do too.
Like, I really ever bring up Dark Knight Returns. It's usually me just banging on about it.
Yeah, no. Honorable mentions, if there's any. I know the Liber Mijo, Brian Azzarello Joker is definitely an honorable mention on my list.
With the same team, honorable mention, Batman Deathblow After the Fire.
There you go.
Fucking love that book.
Anything Authority. Like anything Authority for me is definitely an honorable mention. If you don't know what
the Warren Ellis
is.
stuff more than the Mark Miller stuff, but I'm a big Authority fan.
For sure.
But yeah, like you said, like almost anything Authority. I've literally read almost every Authority book ever. I think I've read them all.
Yeah.
And yeah, anything Authority I would read.
And I think the only other, and then like I was
Jason Aaron's Thor. I can't shut the fuck up about
that,
it.
So I
like,
can't. I'm not.
I would think I'd want to let you borrow it, and then we can just do a Jason Aaron episode, and we'll just talk about.
We should totally do that. Think his stuff is I'll fucking reread, or I'll finish. I didn't even reread it. I'll finish.
I'll bring you Scouts.
Stay Angry.
And Stay Angry. And Thor. And we can go down a rabbit hole. Did you read The Other Side? God, it's good.
Oh my god.
Anyway.
I think the last other couple honorable mentions I have to throw out there is X-Men Schism and
Jason Aaron,
Fear Itself,
Fraction,
and anything else Batman Scott Snyder, because goddamn. Because
so
there was
Death
of the Family, and then what was the sequel called?
Endgame.
That is then I have read it.
Have you?
How does it end?
Where Batman and Joker die in like the cave of Dionysium like falls down on them and they both die.
I think I read that.
And then when they come back, Bruce has amnesia, and the Joker's been reborn.
Okay, no, I haven't read that. That's okay. And I'm gonna forget it, so I'll read it.
But like knowing how it ends is not the fun in that. Like reading Endgame, it's like the very first issue is the Justice League getting Jokerized and coming after Bruce, and then him trying to figure out. Dude, it's so good.
Okay, I feel felt like there was not a sequel. It's not a 3-part thing where Endgame is the third. There wasn't a second and a one. It was just Death of the Family into Endgame.
I mean, I think there was stuff after Death in the Family and before Endgame, but I don't remember what it was. But it wasn't Joker stuff.
Oh, okay. I felt like there was stuff after that because I remember reading more shit after Death of the Family that touched on what happened in Death of the Family, but I don't remember it being like a story arc. Maybe it was like a one-off or something. Anyways. But yeah, those are the honorable mentions that I had, so I just had to throw those out there. Those are fucking great stories.
Yeah, I think like Sandman, Preacher, Transmetropolitan, a bunch of stuff that I loved. Get rid of some of the stuff that I just had to get rid of. Matt Fraction, David Aja, and Hawkeye. I think that's
Iron
like
Man?
the
Matt Fraction, Iron Man.
Matt Fraction, Salvador LaRocca, and Iron Man. But Hawkeye more so because Hawkeye is like the loser hero done right, like in a modern way with like real important issues kind of tossed in there about like violence and love, and there's even like a silent sign language issue which I love. That's really cool.
Another fucking fantastic story read that I absolutely love is Infinite Crisis.
Infinite Crisis was good.
And wait, am I saying that one right?
Yeah, Infinite Crisis,
the one with Superboy. Okay,
yeah,
Infinite Crisis. I love that.
Yeah,
little fucking hand. Oh my god.
Speaking of Superboy, Joe Kelly wrote a run on Superboy that I loved. It was kind of funny. I've never mentioned this before. I think I've thought about it before. But so Matt Fraction got a bunch of credit for having Clint be the head of a tenement building. Like he bought an apartment complex and he like protected it.
Oh yeah.
Superboy did that in his like pre-New 52 run years before. Where
nice.
He ran in an apartment complex. It was just him. And he had to take care of the fucking people inside. And it was like Jimmy Palmiotti was writing that at the time. And it was the end of that Superboy run.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, Connell, my dude.
Lantern Corps, the fucking...
Sinestro War?
Yeah, Sinestro War was fucking great.
Yeah.
Rebirth.
Black Summer.
We already talked Rebirth. Rebirth. Green Lantern Rebirth, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Green Lantern. Oh, yeah, Green Lantern Rebirth is really good. Black Summer by Warren Ellis was a really fucking
Dude,
weird,
I wanted to read that.
Comic. Yeah, I love that. We could use that now.
I remember you fucking...
Yeah, Black Hole by Charles Burns is another great indie comic. There's tons of great... I'm reading The Inkle right now by... Mobius and Jodorowsky, fucking finally get into Meta Barons and all sorts of stuff. I just started reading Why the Last Man.
Saga. Oh my god.
Reading Brian K. Vaughan.
Yeah. I've read some of it, not all of it, and I know it's not finished yet, but god damn it, Saga is fucking...
Yeah, Saga
is beautiful.
It's so funny. So Sci-Fi Wire is a YouTube channel for the Sci-Fi Channel, and they do a lot of behind the panels. They talk to comics creators and writers and stuff, and they're talking to Garth Ennis about like... This was after Punisher Season 2 came out, and they're just, like, talking about, The Boys and Frank Castle and all this shit. And they asked him, like, so what are you into now? What are you reading? And he's like, well, I thought Providence was really good. Alan Moore's Providence, the last comic series he ever did. He's like, it's magnificent. Providence is great. Like, and I really like Saga.
That's
like,
so
Garth
cool.
Ennis, like, he's like, it is not my cup of tea. He's like, it's fucking fairies and magic and space opera.
TV head people.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know what it is, but it's fucking glorious. He loves
really
Saga.
It is so good.
Saga is great.
Saga is one of those things that I would love to see them like make a show of, but then never want them to make a show because I don't think they'll ever hit it unless they made it completely CG like that. What was it, Love, Death, and Robots or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Like if you did that, like a
cool.
Netflix series, did that with Saga. I'd put my 2 cents in there, but I don't think you would ever capture what Saga is. That shit's too good. And again, going back to stop shitting on comic books. Comic book is a perfect art form for telling that story. It might not be that. I just like moving pictures.
Yeah, so. I know what you mean. But on that note, would you like to take us up?
Absolutely. Again, as always, we would like to hear your comments. We'd like to hear what you think about the episode. What are your top 5 favorite stories? Are you sick and tired of talking about Batman? Do you want more Batman?
Do you want more Batman? Because that's a thing that could happen.
So again, hit us up on Twitter at EOTI_podcast. Our email, endoftheinternetpod at gmail.com. Hit us up. Those are the 2 best ways. And of course, leave a comment, hit subscribe, like, all that good stuff. If you found our stuff entertaining. If not, no big deal. But if you made it to the end and you're listening to this right now, fucking hit that goddamn bell. Come on, man.
I can't imagine you making it this far into this episode and not liking it.
Yeah, seriously.
Maybe sometimes I hate watch stuff and I hate listening to stuff. Like for like 2 weeks I was listening to the Daily Zeitgeist, the podcast, and I just was like hate listening to it.
Really?
Yeah,
holy shit, that's awesome.
We'll have to get into that later.
Oh man.
But yeah, please leave a comment. Let us know your guys' favorite, your top 5 favorite comics runs, why you like them, why Dark Knight is the best or not the best Batman story. I'm really interested, like I said, about that. But for the End of the Internet podcast, my name is Gonzalo.
I am Marcus.
This is the end of the episode, and we hope you all have a good night.
Peace.